Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're diving straight into generative AI in healthcare, specifically how it's really shaking up the discovery and development of, well, new medicines. And for you, keen to grasp what's important quickly, we've basically distilled a comprehensive 2025 report. We're aiming to pull out the crucial takeaways. Our mission, really, is to understand how this Gen AI tech is changing that traditionally super long and expensive process of bringing new drugs to market.
Yeah, exactly. And the sources are solid peer-reviewed studies, proprietary data, case analyses, a really good mix.
Good stuff. So where do we start? The industry's under pressure, right?
Absolutely. You've got rising R&D costs, diseases getting more complex, and frankly, a bit of a worrying trend with success rates dropping in early development.
Okay.
So against that background, generative AI, well, it's looking like a genuine game changer. It offers a path to much faster, more efficient drug design.
Faster feels like an understatement here. The report mentioned, cutting lead compound identification from maybe 2 years down to under 6 months?
That's the potential, yeah. It's a dramatic shift.
Wow.
And you see it reflected in the market growth, too. AI in healthcare is just exploding. Projections are hitting like $160, $180 billion by 2030. Gen AI is a huge part of that drive.
Okay, so let's dig into the actual applications, those sort of aha moments. Where is it making the biggest difference right now?
Well, one really fascinating area is de novo molecular design.
Novo, so designing from scratch.
Exactly. Gen AI algorithms can actually create entirely new molecules, ones with specific properties you want. They learn patterns from these huge data sets of existing compounds and then, explore totally uncharted chemical territory.
That sounds like science fiction almost. Any real-world examples?
Oh, yeah. A key one mentioned is in silico medicine's rentasertib. What's interesting there is the AI didn't just tweak an existing molecule. It identified the target and designed the drug basically from the ground up.
Okay, so it's finding the problem and the solution.
Right. It really shows how AI can break through some of those traditional research bottlenecks.
But hang on, if you're creating totally new molecules, how do you ensure they're, stable or even manufacturable? That seems like a big hurdle.
It is. That's a critical point.
Right.
The AI is great at the initial design, but the downstream stuff, actually synthesizing it, making sure you can scale it up, that's still evolving, especially for these AI native molecules.
Right.
But seeing compounds like rentasertib actually succeed in early clinical trials is definitely promising. It shows it's feasible.
Okay. What else? You mentioned screening.
Yes, in silico compound screening or virtual screening. So instead of chemists in a lab physically testing maybe millions of compounds, which takes ages and costs a fortune.
Months, right. And millions per candidate sometimes.
Exactly. Now, Gen AI can computationally screen billions of compounds. The report suggests potentially in under a week.
Billions in a week?
Yeah. The projection is screening over 10 billion compounds annually using these models. The efficiency gain is just staggering.
That's incredible.
And that speed continues. It accelerates identifying the lead compounds, shrinking that phase from months or years down to weeks, potentially.
And then optimizing them, making them better.
Right. Drug optimization. Gen AI can suggest specific tweaks to a molecule's structure, to improve effectiveness, maybe reduce side effects, improve how it gets absorbed. It learns from vast data sets to make these suggestions way faster than traditional methods.
Which normally takes how long?
That optimization part. Traditionally, 3 to 5 years, millions of dollars. AI could cut that down significantly.
So the AI is proposing changes a human chemist might take ages to figure out. Does it also predict how the drug will actually behave in a person?
It tries to, yes. That's the ADME prediction part. Absorption, distribution, metabolism, excretion, and crucially, toxicity.
Okay.
Predicting these early on, just from the molecule structure, is huge. It lets researchers flag potential problems like toxicity much sooner and avoid those really expensive late-stage failures.
That saves enormous amounts of time and money, I imagine.
Definitely. Reducing those late-stage failure rates is a major goal.
And I think you mentioned simulations as well, like testing on computers.
Yeah, molecule simulations, or in silico testing, high-precision computer models showing how molecules interact. It reduces the need for some, though not all, traditional lab work.
And finding new uses for old drugs.
Drug repurposing, yes. Gen AI is proving quite good at analyzing existing data to spot potential new applications for drugs already approved for something else. We saw this being used during the COVID-19 pandemic, for instance. Shortens timelines dramatically if it works.
Okay, so stepping back, this isn't just like a small improvement. It feels more fundamental. What's the big takeaway here for, for our listener?
I think the report really frames it as a shift from drug discovery being maybe more intuition-led historically to being deeply data-driven.
Right.
The potential impact is massive, cutting early R&D costs by maybe up to 40%, reducing that lead optimization time by over 50%. Some experts even talk about potentially 10xing the rate of drug discoveries.
10 times, that would be revolutionary.
It would mean much faster biological progress. And the report mentions they use rigorous methods like this 5 sunburst evaluation model to actually assess these AI applications, looking at business value, tech maturity, feasibility, risk, strategic fit. It's not just hype.
So summing it up, GenAI isn't just another tool, it's fundamentally re-architecting the whole process of discovering and developing medicines.
Exactly. It's a profound shift.
Which leaves us, and you listening, with a pretty big thought, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
If we can accelerate drug discovery this much, what diseases that we always thought were intractable, the really tough ones, might suddenly become treatable much sooner than we ever expected.
Yeah, and how does that change our whole view of health, longevity, maybe even what it means to be human? Lots to think about there, beyond just the tech itself.
Imagine trying to find a needle. Not just in one haystack, but maybe millions of them. And each haystack is like a super complex biological system that's always changing.
Yeah, that's a pretty good analogy for what discovering new medicines is like today.
It's just incredibly tough. Costs billions, takes, what, a decade? Maybe more?
Easily. And it's getting worse, bizarrely. You mentioned Ehrum's Law more spelled backward.
Right. The observation that drug discovery actually gets slower and more expensive over time. Totally the opposite of, like, computers.
It really puts things at a critical point for healthcare, doesn't it? The old ways are struggling.
Definitely. Costs are soaring, populations are aging, and that R&D productivity, well, it's a challenge.
Which is why technology, innovation,
Yeah.
it's not just nice to have anymore. It's become essential if we want new breakthroughs.
Yeah.
And this isn't just some random paper. It comes from a strategic partnership Pitchworks VC studio and a global Gen AI consultant, Mr. Murali Sundaram.
So think of it like a roadmap, basically.
Exactly. They're trying to light the way, show where generative AI can have the biggest impact, specifically in discovering and developing new drugs.
Right. It's the first report in a series they're doing. And the goal really is to give everyone involved, the innovators, the big companies, the leaders, the insights they need.
To move past just, dipping their toes in the water with Gen AI.
Yeah, exactly. To actually integrate these tools, scale them up, and drive some real meaningful change. It's about getting these advanced solutions widely adopted.
And the potential is massive. The report talks about the AI and healthcare market possibly hitting over, 160, maybe $180 billion by 2030. Gen AI is expected to grab a big slice of that.
Wow, and it's not just Gen AI, right? The report touches on other big tech shifts, too.
Oh, yeah. Things like robotics for automation, some really interesting stuff happening in microbiome research, even digital twins for complex simulations. But the focus here is definitely Gen AI in drug discovery.
Okay. So for our deep dive then, let's try to cut through the hype. Based on this report, what is Gen AI actually doing right now in this field?
And how did the report's authors figure out where the real value is? What criteria did they use?
Exactly. And then let's walk through the specific things Gen AI can do, those use cases they identified. Can it really help us reverse that Ehrum's law trend? That feels like the big question.
Well, to answer that, the report uses a pretty rigorous approach, a structured framework, the kind a big company would use to assess a new technology before investing heavily.
Okay, let's unpack that framework. 5 dimensions, you said. What's the first one?
First up, maybe the most obvious one, business value.
Makes sense. What's the bottom line?
Right. Does it save significant costs? Does it open up new revenue streams? Can it slash the time it takes to get a drug to market, improve quality, even patient experience?
And the report points to some specific areas with high potential there.
Yeah, definitely. Things like designing new molecules from scratch, that's de novo molecular design. Also virtual screening, speeding up lead identification, and accelerating preclinical testing. These came out as high impact.
Okay, what's the second dimension?
Technology maturity. Basically, how ready is the tech itself?
Right. Is it reliable? Accurate?
Exactly. How good are the AI models? Is there clinical validation? How easily does it plug into the software and systems labs already use, things like CanMA or Schrodinger? Can it handle large-scale projects? And, crucially, does it align with regulations?
And I guess the maturity level varies a lot depending on the specific AI application.
Hugely.
Mm.
Some techniques are fairly well established, others are still very much cutting-edge research.
Okay, dimension 3.
Feasibility. This is all about the practical reality. Can the scientists and R&D teams actually use these tools effectively day to day?
Ah, so it's about adoption. Do people trust the AI?
Precisely. And what about training? Especially for folks who aren't AI specialists. And then there's the whole IT side, data security, privacy, access control. Super important.
The report calls this a potential showstopper, right?
Absolutely. Doesn't matter how great the tech is or how much value it promises on paper if people can't or won't use it easily and securely, it's dead in the water.
Okay, number 4 must be risk.
You got it. Risk. What are the downsides? The report highlights model hallucination. That's when the AI generates outputs that seem plausible but are actually scientifically wrong.
Ouch, that could waste a lot of time and money.
For sure. Then there's data privacy and IP risk. We're talking incredibly sensitive research data. Reproducibility is another one.
Yeah.
Can you consistently get the same results from the AI? And regulatory uncertainty is huge because the rules for AI in medicine are still being written.
So more complex applications might carry higher risks right now.
Generally, yes. Things closer to the biology, like predicting protein folding or how drugs interact with targets, biomarker discovery, even vaccine design. These areas often have higher uncertainty and risk currently. Managing that risk is key for companies deciding where to focus.
Okay, and the 5th and final dimension.
Strategic fit. Does this AI solution actually align with the company's long-term goals and strategy?
Does it give them a real edge over competitors?
Exactly. Maybe by speeding up timelines dramatically or cutting costs or even creating unique intellectual property. And it also asks, is the organization ready? Are the teams trained? Is leadership bought in? Can they actually make this work at scale?
So putting all 5 together, value, maturity, feasibility, risk, and strategic fit, gives a really comprehensive picture.
Right. It moves beyond just saying AI is cool to asking, okay, where can this specific AI application make the biggest, most practical difference for us right now?
It's about smart prioritization. Okay, so using this framework, the report identified 18 specific use cases for GenAI in drug discovery. Let's dive into those, maybe group them a bit.
Sounds good. A big chunk of them fall under the umbrella of, let's say, design and discovery, helping researchers actually create and find promising drug candidates much faster.
Okay, like de novo molecular design, generating brand new molecules.
Exactly. Not just tweaking existing ones, but
Yeah.
using AI to explore totally new chemical possibilities from scratch, stuff humans might never even consider.
Any examples?
Yeah. The report mentions in silico medicine's drug, rentosertib. Apparently, GenAI found both the biological target and designed the novel molecule. That's pretty cool.
Wow.
And another example, DSP-11181 went from identifying the target to being ready for clinical trials in less than 18 months. That's way faster than the usual few years.
Huge acceleration. Okay, what else in design and discovery?
Finding the best starting points. Lead compound identification acceleration, using AI to rapidly screen huge chemical libraries to find those initial promising leads. We're talking potentially cutting months or years down to weeks.
And related to that is in silico compound screening or virtual screening.
Right. Instead of physically testing millions of compounds in the lab, which takes ages and costs a fortune, AI predicts computationally which ones are most likely to work. The report suggests maybe a 2.5x performance improvement there.
So finding leads faster, what about making them better?
That's drug optimization. Taking a promising lead compound and using AI to help refine it, make it more potent, more selective, reduce potential side effects, improve how the body handles it.
Okay, so that covers a lot of the initial design work. What about predicting how these molecules will actually behave?
Yeah, that's another major area, prediction and simulation. Using AI to understand molecular behavior without always needing a wet lab experiment.
Like figuring out if a drug will be toxic.
Exactly. That falls under predicting ADME properties. ADME stands for absorption, distribution, metabolism, excretion, and toxicity. Basically how the drug moves through and affects a living system.
Super important.
Critical. GenAI can help flag potential toxicity issues much earlier in the process. That could potentially save billions by preventing drugs from failing late in clinical trials.
The report asks a pretty big question about that, doesn't it?
It does. Could AI-driven ADME prediction get so good that it virtually eliminates late-stage failures and enables truly personalized drug design within, say, the next decade? It's a mind-bending possibility.
It really is. What other predictive stuff can AI do?
Molecular property prediction, estimating things like how soluble a molecule is or how easily it crosses cell membranes, key factors for choosing candidates. And molecule simulations, doing complex virtual experiments to see how molecules interact.
What about the fundamental biology, like how drugs actually work?
Yep. Drug-target interaction prediction, figuring out how strongly a molecule will bind to its intended biological target, like a protein. And, of course, protein structure prediction folding.
Ah, like AlphaFold.
Exactly. AI tools like AlphaFold predicting the 3D shape of proteins is revolutionary. That shape determines function. So knowing it is crucial for designing drugs that fit and work correctly.
And this isn't just for small molecule drugs, right?
No, it applies to biologics too. That's large molecule optimization, using AI to help design and refine things like therapeutic antibodies or mRNA molecules, which are a huge part of modern medicine.
Okay. Is there anything else on the design side?
One more compound library expansion, using AI to analyze a company's existing chemical libraries and suggest smart ways to expand them, creating more diverse sets of molecules for future drug hunting.
Got it. So design discovery, prediction simulation. Well, what's the next big category?
I'd say data and knowledge synthesis, making sense of the absolute flood of biological data and published research out there.
That sounds crucial. Where does AI help there?
Biomarker discovery is a big one. Finding those genetic signatures or molecular clues that indicate disease presence or predict how someone will respond to a treatment, essential for personalized medicine.
And AI can sift through massive data sets, genomics, proteomics, to find those patterns faster.
Much faster, and potentially find connections humans would miss. Another one is drug repurposing.
Finding new uses for old drugs.
Exactly. Using AI to scan data and literature to see if an existing approved drug could work for a different disease. That's often a quicker, cheaper, less risky path to a new treatment.
That makes a lot of sense. Any other applications in this data synthesis area?
Vaccine design, specifically antigen prediction. This is really forward-looking. Using AI to design better vaccine components, antigens that are stable, evade mutations, and trigger a strong immune response.
The report mentions some AI models for this, like protein GAN.
Yeah, protein GAN, protein language models, but for generating stable protein sequences. And there's that amazing quote in the report, something like, vaccines won't chase diseases, they'll anticipate them.
Wow. Designing vaccines for viruses that don't even exist yet.
That's the potential.
Yeah.
Shifting from reactive to predictive. It's pretty profound.
Definitely. Okay, what else? We're getting through the list.
Closer to the lab bench, there's accelerating preclinical testing, using AI to help interpret data from early in vitro, lab dish, and in vivo, animal studies, assessing safety, efficacy, toxicity, maybe predicting side effects earlier, or even reducing the need for animal testing.
And what about combining drugs?
Right, drug combination prediction. Especially for complex diseases like cancer, finding combinations of drugs that work better together than alone. AI can analyze tons of data to predict these synergies and hopefully avoid bad interactions. Helps push personalized treatments forward.
Okay, almost there. The last two seem foundational.
Very much so. Synthesizing scientific knowledge and hypothesis generation. This is where the large language models, the LLMs, are the tech behind ChatGPT, but applying to science, really shine.
So reading and understanding all the research papers.
And connecting the dots, summarizing findings, even generating entirely new scientific hypotheses based on patterns in the data and literature that no single human could possibly process.
There was a stat about that in the report, wasn't there? About saving researchers time.
Yeah, a striking one. Researchers might spend 70% of their time just wading through data. GenAI could potentially cut that down to minutes. Imagine, increasing the efficiency of picking the right drug targets by over 30% right at the start.
That alone could be transformative for speeding up the whole process.
Absolutely. It changes how early-stage research even gets done.
Okay, so that's the 18. It's a huge range of applications. The report then tries to group these somehow into actionable batches.
Right, batches with names like Catalysts, Accelerons, Design Lab, Insight Engines, Explorers. It's basically their way of helping organizations prioritize.
Based on that 5-part framework we talked about. Yeah. Value, maturity, feasibility.
Exactly. So the catalysts, for example, are the use cases that scored high on business value and are relatively mature and feasible. Those are the ones the report suggests are kind of ready for prime time, offering potentially high ROI relatively quickly.
While others might be more exploratory or need longer-term investment.
Precisely. It connects the what these 18 possibilities with the how and when for a specific organization based on that evaluation. It's a practical way to strategize.
Makes sense. It's a roadmap. But it's not all smooth sailing, right? The report is clear about the challenges.
Oh, definitely not. There are some major hurdles. Data governance is huge, keeping sensitive patient and research data private and secure, making sure data from different sources can actually work together.
A report cited a stat about that.
Yeah, a Deloitte one. Something like 75% of healthcare execs see data privacy and governance as the top barrier in clinical settings. Similar issues plague R&D.
And the rules are still being written. Regulatory uncertainty.
Big time. AI is moving so fast, regulators like the FDA, the WHO, they're scrambling to keep up. The WHO even called for more agility from regulators. Plus, just plugging these fancy new AI tools into the old IT systems many pharma companies have, that's complex and expensive.
And speaking of cost, cost itself is a barrier, isn't it? The upfront investment.
It can be substantial. Infrastructure, data pipelines, specialized talent, which leads to maybe the biggest hurdle of all, the skill gap.
Finding people who understand both AI and biology.
Exactly. You need that blend of AI machine learning skills, bioinformatics, and deep knowledge of chemistry and biology.
Okay.
McKinsey's survey found only about 20% of pharma companies felt they'd really cracked integrating AI into R&D.
There was a quote about that, too.
Yeah, from Dr. Atul Butte. He said something like, closing the talent gap is as important as developing the technology itself without skilled people. AI won't reach its full potential.
That really hits home. The best AI is useless without the right people.
Totally. So yes, the report shows this incredible landscape of opportunity, these 18 use cases, this robust way to evaluate them. But overcoming these practical, organizational, and talent challenges is absolutely critical to actually making it happen.
So let's bring this back home for you, the listener. Why should you care about all this? Well, this deep dive into the pitchworks in Mr. Murali's Sundaram report, it's not just tech talk. It's about potentially rewriting the future of your health.
It points towards faster discovery of new medicines, which could mean treatments become available sooner, maybe even become more affordable eventually.
And therapies could become much more personalized, tailored to your specific situation, your genes, your disease.
It also opens doors to tackling diseases that have been really tough nuts to crack just because the old R&D process was too slow or hit too many dead ends.
Just maybe, this is how we finally start to push back against that E-Rooms law. Yeah. Maybe GenAI is the key.
The report certainly makes that case, while also providing that practical guide for companies to move from just talking about AI to actually doing it, capturing that huge potential and making real progress.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we've seen how this report structures the evaluation value, maturity, feasibility, risk, strategic fit. And we've explored that amazing breadth of 18 applications, from designing molecules to simulating biology to making sense of all the research out there.
It really paints a picture of Gen AI becoming indispensable across the entire drug R&D pipeline, even with those significant hurdles still needing to be cleared.
Let's go back to that quote from Mr. Murali Sundaram. For the first time, the time machines can provide efficient right support to make humans truly healthy. Think about those 18 specific AI uses we talked through: generating new drug candidates, predicting toxicity super early, designing smarter vaccines, instantly synthesizing global research.
How could those specific capabilities, once they're widely adopted and scaled up, actually change your personal experience with health, or the health of people you know in the years to come?
Yeah. Which one of those transformations feels most significant, most impactful to you? Something to think about.